Victor Lustig, one of history's most notorious and enigmatic con artists, crafted his own 10 commandments for a con artist. These weren't just idle musings or a code of honor. They were a calculated, step-by-step blueprint for deception, manipulation, and psychological mastery. Lustig understood that the art of the con was as much about reading people as it was about tricking them. These commandments weren't about ethics or morality. Instead, they were a set of rules designed to help a con artist blend in, gain trust, and ultimately control the narrative. For example, be a patient listener. Lustig knew that people reveal their weaknesses when they feel heard. Never look bored, because boredom is a crack in the mask that can shatter the illusion. Another key rule: always agree with your mark's opinions. By mirroring their beliefs and values, Lustig could make anyone feel like they were the smartest person in the room, lowering their guard and opening the door to manipulation. Lustig's genius lay in his ability to build trust on a foundation of lies, skillfully reflecting people's desires and ambitions back at them. He didn't just trick people, he made them complicit in their own deception, weaving a web so convincing that his victims rarely realized they'd been caught until it was too late. He wasn't a brute or a thug, he was a performer, a master of disguise, fluent in several languages and exuding an aristocratic charm that made him welcome in the highest circles of society. His presence alone could disarm suspicion and invite trust. For Lustig, these rules were more than guidelines. They were a script, and he was always the lead actor, improvising his way through each con with the confidence of a seasoned stage performer. The best cons, he believed, were the ones where the victim felt completely in control, convinced that every decision was their own. Lustig's brilliance was in making the illogical seem logical, the risky seem profitable, and the impossible seem inevitable. His final commandment was perhaps the most practical: never get drunk. In Lustig's world, a con artist was always on duty, always alert. One careless slip, one moment of weakness, could unravel months of careful planning and destroy everything. By following these principles, Victor Lustig managed to pull off some of the most audacious and legendary scams in history, leaving behind a legacy that continues to fascinate and caution us about the power of persuasion and the art of illusion. Paris, 1925. The city is alive with post-war optimism, jazz, and reckless spending. Amidst the boom, naivety flourished. People were hungry for quick profits and grand opportunities. The French government struggled with reconstruction costs. Public infrastructure was crumbling, and rumors about selling national monuments filled the papers. For Lustig, this chaos was the perfect backdrop for a con. Paris was a mix of old and new money, where a well-dressed stranger could pass as a government insider. With no internet or easy fact-checking, verifying official stories was nearly impossible. Lustig exploited this information gap, isolating his victims in a bubble of misinformation. By the time the truth emerged, he'd be long gone. Paris was his playground, and the perfect stage for his greatest trick. The story of Victor Lustig's most infamous con begins not with a grand scheme, but with a simple, overlooked newspaper article. In the bustling heart of 1920s Paris, Lustig sat in a smoky cafe, thumbing through the day's news, when a small headline caught his eye. It spoke of the Eiffel Tower, an icon of French ingenuity, now facing the relentless march of time and the burden of costly repairs. The Eiffel Tower, originally constructed for the 1889 World's Fair, had become both a symbol of Paris and a financial headache. Its iron frame was rusting, and the city struggled to keep up with the mounting maintenance bills. Whispers circulated among officials. Was it time to dismantle the tower, or perhaps even sell it off? For Lustig, a master of deception, this was more than just news. It was a spark. He imagined a scenario so bold, so outrageous, that it bordered on the unthinkable. What if the French government, desperate and discreet, decided to sell the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal? Lustig's mind raced with possibilities. He knew that Paris was home to powerful scrap metal dealers, men who thrived on risk and unconventional deals. If he could convince them that the government was secretly seeking buyers, he could orchestrate the greatest con the city had ever seen. The sheer audacity of the plan became its greatest strength. After all, Who would dare to impersonate a high-ranking government official and attempt to sell the nation's most beloved landmark? The idea was so outrageous, it just might work. Lustig understood human nature. He knew that greed could cloud even the sharpest minds, making people see only opportunity where there should be caution. With meticulous care, he crafted forged documents, invented a convincing backstory, and assumed the impressive title of Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. Every detail was designed to inspire trust and urgency. Lustig wasn't just selling a monument, he was offering a once-in-a-lifetime business opportunity, a secret deal that promised unimaginable profits to those bold enough to seize it. And so, in the shadow of the Eiffel Tower, the stage was set for a con that would echo through history, a testament to the power of audacity, cunning, and the irresistible lure of the impossible. Every detail had to be flawless. Lustig commissioned perfect forgeries, official stationery, embossed seals, and confidential invitations to a meeting at the prestigious Hotel de Crillon. The hotel's reputation lent instant credibility. It was where real power brokers met. Lustig played the role of a weary official burdened with a secret task. The government had decided to dismantle the Eiffel Tower. He presented fake engineering reports and draft contracts, passing them around to his hand-picked group of 5 scrap dealers. He stressed absolute secrecy, isolating his marks and making them feel part of an exclusive inner circle. The setting, the documents, the performance, every element reinforced the illusion. The dealers believed they were on the inside of a historic deal. Lustig's con was in motion. Lustig wasn't after the richest dealer. He wanted the most eager and insecure. He watched for ambition and vulnerability, quickly zeroing in on André Poisson, a newcomer, desperate for prestige. For Poisson, this deal was about more than money. It was his ticket to the business elite. Lustig flattered him, arranged a private meeting, and made Poisson feel like the government's chosen partner. But Poisson's wife was suspicious. Why the secrecy? Why a hotel? Poisson confronted Lustig with his doubts, and the con teetered on the edge. Lustig needed one last move to seal the deal. He turned Poisson's suspicion into opportunity. The final act of the con was about to begin. The perfect mark was almost hooked. When Poisson hesitated, Lustig didn't panic. He improvised. He confided in Poisson, lamenting his low government salary and hinting at the need for a bribe. For Poisson, this made the whole affair believable. Corruption was familiar territory. The request for a bribe erased Poisson's doubts. Now it felt like a standard backroom deal. Poisson assembled a hefty bribe, plus the payment for the scrap metal. Lustig accepted the cash with a solemn nod, as if it were a distasteful necessity. Poisson believed he'd outsmarted the system. In reality, he'd paid extra to be conned. Lustig had sold the Eiffel Tower and the privilege of being deceived. The con was complete. With the bribe and payment in hand, Lustig handed Poisson a beautifully forged bill of sale. He advised Poisson to wait a few days before starting demolition, buying time for his escape. Lustig and his partner, Dapper Dan Collins, caught the first train out of Paris, vanishing to Vienna. Back in Paris, Poisson waited, then contacted the real ministry, only to discover the horrifying truth. There was no sale, no deputy director general, no secret plan. Humiliated, Poisson never reported the crime. The shame was too great. Lustig had counted on this silence. The perfect crime is one the victim is too embarrassed to reveal. Lustig's understanding of human psychology was his greatest protection. He left Paris a legend. For most, selling the Eiffel Tower once would be enough. For Lustig, it was just the beginning. Months later, with his funds running low, he returned to Paris to try the same con again. He sent out new invitations, booked the same hotel, and played the same role. The audacity was staggering. Same city, same scam, just new marks. But this time, one dealer grew suspicious and went to the police before any money changed hands. Alerted, the authorities closed in. Lustig, ever the escape artist, slipped out of Paris and fled to the United States. The second attempt failed, but his legend only grew. The man who sold the Eiffel Tower, twice. Victor Lustig's story is a masterclass in the psychology of the con. He was more than just a criminal. He was a performer, a strategist, and a keen observer of the human mind. His ability to read people, to sense their hopes and vulnerabilities, allowed him to weave elaborate illusions that seemed almost magical. Lustig's greatest trick wasn't just selling the Eiffel Tower or printing fake money. It was convincing people to trust him, even when their instincts whispered otherwise. He didn't rely on force or technology, just a deep understanding of human nature. He knew that people are often driven by ambition, greed, and the desire to be part of something exclusive. By tapping into these emotions, he could make even the most outlandish schemes seem plausible. His charm and confidence were his greatest weapons, disarming suspicion and opening doors that should have remained closed. His victims bought into a dream, seduced by the promise of wealth and status. They saw in Lustig an opportunity to change their fortunes, to gain access to a world just out of reach. The allure of easy success blinded them to the warning signs, and in their eagerness, they became willing participants in their own deception. Today's scams may be digital, but the principles are unchanged: urgency, secrecy, and the lure of something too good to be true. Modern con artists use emails, texts, and social media, but they still prey on the same hopes and fears. The technology has evolved, but the human element remains at the heart of every successful con. Studying con artists like Lustig is more than entertainment. It's a lesson in skepticism. Their stories reveal how easily we can be manipulated and how important it is to question what seems obvious. By understanding their methods, we become better equipped to protect ourselves and those around us. Their stories teach us to question, to recognize red flags, and to guard against our own desires being used against us. In a world where deception is constantly evolving, critical thinking and awareness are our best defenses. Education and open conversation about these tactics can help us build a more resilient society. The world will always have its Lustigs, and their tales remain both a warning and a fascination. They remind us that trust is precious, and that even the most convincing stories deserve scrutiny. If you found this story compelling, keep exploring the art and science of deception, and stay vigilant. The more we learn, the better prepared we are to spot the next confidence man before he strikes.